Okay, I'd like to start over here with a different idea that somebody had. So rather than having a list of lists or a list of sets for the bubbles, actually, how about we just store one list? And that list is, at each index, going to hold some ID of a bubble that it belongs to. Okay. So we'll say just a single list. Each element is the ID of a particular, or of the corresponding object. And we'll just start the IDs of the bubbles with the object integers. So I can say something like this: self.IDs equals list range n. Okay, so just to show you, list range some number, that is going to make a list. You know, range is not actually a list. It's a range. It's this iterable thing. If I say list range, that actually makes it a list. Okay. So already I see that the constructor is pretty simple. I'd have to think maybe a little bit harder about how is union going to work. Okay. So let's just kind of type out some ideas and see if we can come up with some pseudocode. So basically, all right, if I and j have the same ID, we don't have to do anything. So, right, they're already in the same bubble. But if I and j have different IDs, then we have to merge the bubbles. So let's call, okay, so let me, now I can write a couple of variables. So I can say ID I is equal to self.IDs I. Let me just store these away in temporary variables. Self.IDs j. Okay. So basically I'm saying if this ID doesn't equal the other one, well then what do I have to do? I would pause for a moment and think, what would you do? I'd encourage you to see if you can think through some of the implementation details of an algorithm here. So let's just say the same thing as before. Let's merge everything in the bubble containing j into the bubble containing I. What that translates into here is that, so in other words, everything with ID j should now have ID I. Okay. So let me say for k ID, oops, ID is a special name. So let me say for k ID k enumerate self.IDs. So I'll say if ID k is ID j, well, we need to update this. So we'll say self.IDs, and index k is actually now becomes ID I. All right. So that should do the trick. So let's just test this real quick. And then again, I'll have you implement the find, but that should be pretty straightforward. So I'll say s is equal to my disjoint set 10. So first of all, let's look at what the bubbles look like. Whoops, I have to run this again to get the new one. Whoops, it's not bubbles, it's called IDs now. S.IDs. Okay, so that starts off pretty simple. So let's now merge 0, 2, 1, 8, 1, 7. So S.union 0, 2, union 1, 8, S.union 8, 7. So let's just look and see what are the IDs now. Okay, so we said that 0 and 2 should be merged. So now we have to do a little bit more work mentally to verify this, but okay. At this point, 0 and 2 are supposed to have the same ID, and they do. 1, 7, and 8. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, they all have the same ID. Okay, let's do another one. So let's do 1 and 6. So that means that 1 and 6. Okay, so now I can see that 1, 6, 7, and 8 all have the same ID. Now if I say union 0, 1, these should a whole bunch of these should have the same ones. So S dot union 0, 1. Now I can see that 0, 1, 2, 6, 7, and 8 all have the same ID, and that's exactly what we see here. Okay, very good. So in some ways, this is a little bit simpler. We never had to merge lists. That is kind of a costly operation because you actually have to make a new list to hold the old ones. Here we just had one list, although we certainly still did have to loop through the entire array just to find everything that had the ID of j that was going to be merged in with the ID of I. But this is a good segue into a more efficient class of algorithms. So I'm going to have you finish find real quick, and then we'll talk about the more efficient algorithms.